I know many of us had hopes that 2021 was going to be a better year for the world as a whole. And sadly, it did not take long for myself and many others to realize that last year was going to be just as confusing and aggravating as the previous. And now, as we all look ahead to 2022, the question of what is ahead for us in this next cycle is on many of our minds. But before we look too far into that future, I do want to reflect some on the past year, as this year had more ups and downs for me personally than any other year of my life. In fact, I would go so far as to say that 2021 was the year that broke me. However, like our visions for 2022, the past year had light at the end of its tunnel, and like a true hero's journey, I had to reach rock bottom in order to see the way forward. In the starting months of last year, the division in our world was becoming more clear by the day. Myself, this content, and the community were all being swept up into it as well. Our position on many large world issues was being called upon, and our answer was simply to go outside.
Let me tell you one thing that definitely hasn't changed since last year. I still think you should go outside. And just to expand on that a little bit, when I say go outside, it's really twofold things. One, our gods are outside. This is where you're going to find them. If you feel disconnected, go out into nature, find a waterfall, walk a creek bed and see what you find. That is one of the most amazing connections you will ever feel in your entire life. Two, we spend way too much time on our phones. These things right here are both one of the greatest blessings and invention of mankind, but it may very well be our downfall if we do not keep it in check. So when I say go outside, what I mean is put down that phone that you're watching this video on and get out into nature and experience its space and experience your life.
We have stood by our philosophy as a community since our founding days. We are open to all, but we are not political. And I hope that everyone is starting to wake up to why this is. Politics are driving a hard wedge between every single person in the Western world, and the explosion of modern social media is feeding the flames of division across our world. While I am personally confident in the answer to this dilemma, the pressure that this has put on was undeniable. I did my best to move on or forget about it. I dove headlong into my work in the community, climbing mountains and attending gatherings, working on content for this channel that now has become one of the things I believe it is known for. In March, I launched the Norse Gods series, where I presented the majority of information we know historically about the deities of this faith, so that you can make a better informed decision on how to venerate them. This format of presenting the straight facts, separate from my own opinions, has been the blueprint for the majority of my videos this past year, and it seems like many of you have really appreciated this approach, so I will be continuing this into the future with my upcoming videos this next year. Despite these distractions, my body and mind were not doing well internalizing these outside pressures, and in April of 2021, my body broke. I admitted myself to the hospital with what I feared was a heart attack, and what was determined after that night in the ER was that I was having chronic infections as well as panic attacks, all caused by stress and anxiety. My body was crying out for help. The picture you are seeing right now is from a leadership retreat that was held only one day after my admittance to the hospital. Looking back now, I cannot believe how bad I had gotten. I had gained weight, my skin was getting rashes and sores, and you can even still see the residue from the EKG that I was hooked up to just a day before. It was at this retreat that I announced I was taking a step back and was going to be spending the summer in Germany with someone very dear to me. While in Germany, I went through a detox, both physically and spiritually, something that I now look back on and realize it saved my life. The first few weeks were quite frankly pretty rough. I had more infections, body aches, and an overall feeling of restlessness. I changed my diet from unhealthy crap to an almost 80% vegan diet. I drank little to no alcohol and coffee and completely unplugged myself from the matrix. When I look back in my journal, it wasn't until the end of June that I truly felt good again. I then spent the next 2 months regaining my strengths, setting healthy habits, and eventually planning for my return to the States. I remember, with almost picture-perfect accuracy, 2 exact moments from my journey abroad. One was the moment I was spiritually reborn and renewed. While in the Swiss Alps filming the collaboration with Wisdom of Odin, I was able to swim in a mountain lake. And just for a moment, I dove deep into the water and heard what I can only describe as the spirit of the mountains. It was deep like a bass drum. Its vibration numbed my brain, and time stopped in that moment. As I surfaced from the lake, 2 ravens called from above, and I looked up as they dove off a mountain peak and flew above me. It was in that moment that my soul was restored from the stress of the past year. The second profound memory I have from my time abroad was in a place called West Park, Munich, which was a park dedicated to Asian culture and history, featuring temples and gardens from China, Japan, Korea, and India. Ultimately, it was a small place with limited buildings, and yet there I was at peace, and I saw it. The dream from my young pagan mind of a hall. A dream that I now believe it was time to bring back alive. So with only a few weeks left in Germany, I began to make my plan on how to achieve this dream the moment my feet touched American soil once again. And what you have seen these last 4 months has been the foundation of that plan. Phase 1 for the hall involved forming the nonprofit around the organization that we had put together over the last couple of years. And funding for that was met in under 9 hours. And now we are working with the lawyer that we paid for to form this nonprofit, and we're working on the bylaws, and everything should be put together very soon. We are also taking this time as a community and as leaders in this community to work on our ritual practice and how we perform them throughout this next year, constantly tweaking and changing small things to allow the spirituality of this faith and this community to constantly evolve and change into something truly beautiful. In my explorations of shamanic practice, I have learned the most powerful force in the universe is gratitude. It is what the spirits and the gods all around us respond to the best. It is one of the most pure forms of energy that we can send out into the universe. So when going into 2022, personally myself, I'm going to be reflecting on what I am grateful for every single day.
Something I'm also changing this year is changing the way I give offerings. So there was kind of a joke in the community for a while of these Jacobean style offerings, which were, whole bottles of meat and things like that. Because it's something I did give very early on, was very large offerings, particularly to Odin usually. But something I've learned, in particular in my shamanic studies into, shamanic practices, I've learned the importance of small offerings every day, or small, not even necessarily every day, just when it feels right, when you feel grateful for something. So now I've been carrying around usually herbs or this iron oxide that I've become very fond of lately, as you can tell already by my hands. So basically I carry a little bit with me all the time, or at least when I go out hiking, and I just leave little sprinkles of offerings as I go, just when I feel a positive emotion, when I feel something that I'm grateful for. This trail I've been on quite a bit, in this area in particular, I've always found so very beautiful, but I've only given an offering here once or twice in my history of coming here. And now maybe every single time I hike, I leave just a little something as a gift, as a way to show thanks. And what I think is going to happen by doing this all year, because again, this is something I'm wanting to introduce into my practice this coming year. What I think it's going to do is it's going to just make me overall more grateful for the every single day. One of the things that happens to us as we grow older, as we have more experiences, and as we see more, is we become desensitized, or at least jaded, or, we just put on a lens or a filter when we walk around places that we've always been. I've been to the Alps now. I've swam in the Swiss Alps. I've, climbed a mountain. I've been in the mountains of Colorado. I have seen extreme beauty in this world. So when coming to a place like this, something that's only 15 minutes from my house, I think it's easy for our brains to be like, well, I've seen something way more interesting than this little stream in Kentucky. And so what I think this is going to do, giving these gifts, giving these small offerings when I go out, every single time, that I feel grateful for something, or I see something beautiful in nature, or, feel a presence or an energy, I think it's just going to open up my mind and remove these filters and blocks that we naturally put in as we live more, as we experience more. And I also think this is really important for people following the spiritual path as well, because as we have more spiritual experiences, we become jaded. We become desensitized to these experiences. It's like, well,
You know, I just had a ritual 2 weeks ago where I, burgled around a fire with 6 other people, all chanting Odin's name, and then all of a sudden all 65 people joined in. How can any experience that I have in my own personal house compare to something like that? So yes, what I really think that these small little offerings are going to do is really open my mind and myself and my spirituality to the beauty that's all around me that I may not notice as much as I used to back when I first started walking this path, and quite frankly, back when I was much younger and less experienced in this world. Yeah, and now there's like all the people in their 40s like, you're not that old. I'm closer to 30 now than I am to 20. So you have to give me a little bit of credit. I'm finally getting to the point where I can start getting a little old and crotchety. Give me that a little bit. And this is something that I hope can inspire you this coming year as well. No matter where you are, no matter what you're struggling with, if it's spiritual or personal, gratitude truly is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. I have learned much, and I have seen much this past year. What I can say with much certainty is that our world is divided now more than ever, and we all need to wake up to what is really causing this division. Turn off the TV, put down your phone, and take back your life. I have learned much, and I have seen much this past year. What I can say with much certainty is that our gods are real, and our ancestors worshipped these same gods, but they did it outside and around a fire. What we do in the real world is all that matters. The internet is only as real as we make it. I have learned much, and I have seen much this past year. 2021 broke me, as it did for many of us. But it is here at rock bottom that we can all look up and see the way out. So let us make 2022 the year we all begin our climb out of this cave and take back the lives we were meant to live.